Buckle up, because we're merging back into traffic on Radio Nemo's Nemo Nation.
Before we get to our next guest, I just want to kind of start a little bit of a conversation here. You guys got what I was getting at, didn't you, when we were talking with Mike about the idea of the impact this model could have on truck driving? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I hope this show does, we always tend to ask questions. We always end up coming back to the drivers themselves. That's who we serve. You have to know who your listeners are, and you have to know who your constituency is. We love all kinds of voices, but if you notice that even when we have our authors on, so many of them will make mention of their father being a truck driver, their grandfather being a truck driver. We really try to make sure it's geared towards that. And as important as the work that he's doing, and of course, that affects everybody, it's important to remember that if Mike achieves what Mike is really hoping to do in this space, it is going to create a workspace that is incredibly safer for truck drivers to exist in, which is why you guys should head over to that website, see what they're up to, and see how you can get involved. Lindsay talks about this all the time, Chris. We have got to create a culture where it's not just, look, we love sitting around a diner and complaining about the industry. It's a fun thing to do. It really is. It's a great way to blow off steam. It's a great way to get your head in the game. But ultimately, we've got to start, and we tell drivers this all the time, tell us what's going on, tell us what's on your mind, tell us what your problems are out there, because Dave and myself and Lindsay and Dre and you, we exist in the supply chain because of what we do for a living, but many of these men and women don't exist outside of it.
Well, and I always think about, I don't have a job if there aren't truck drivers for me to serve, right? Like that's what we need to be doing. And Mike reminded me of a really amazing program we did at a carrier that I worked at, which was, we did a very, very similar program where we were simulating an accident. We were talking about the impact of that accident on members of the public, on our drivers. But we did that training not with the drivers, who, by the way, experience these things on the road all the time, but with our office staff. So when a dispatcher or a fleet manager or a planner looks at an order and says, I bet I can get that order there. It's going to be tight. That driver might have to push through a little bit, but we're going to do it. We're going to get this freight. We're going to make this shipper happy here. Boy, think about the consequences of your actions there. Think about what you're asking a human being to do in an 80,000-pound vehicle, that you're going to push them and have them try to go faster, try to go harder, things like that. I think it's really interesting. We put a lot of onus on the driver to do the right thing and be safe, and certainly there's responsibility there. But there's responsibility in all of us who participate in the supply chain to serve the driver and do the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Donnie Tolk and I of Tulsa Tech were talking about this, and he says what kills him is the number of people who work in the supply chain outside of the seat of the wheel, who 20 minutes a day pick up a magazine, go to Landline, go to CDL Life, go to Transport Topics. If there are people who, by simply reading 20 minutes of content a day, would learn so much more about the industry that they exist in. But if you can't start with safety, if you can't even find 15 to 20 minutes to read about safety culture, then something is really off. Something is really, really off. And I'm just kind of stunned about it all the time. I've worked with people. They're people I've worked with over the course of my time here. Nobody here, of course, now. But it's like I'd ask them questions like, what's a reset? And they would look at me like I was literally speaking Chinese. And I am constantly staggered by that. I ain't got time for that. I don't have any space in my time. I got other stuff I got to do. I got to make a sale.
How can you understand the driver experience if you don't understand hours of service and the work rest cycle and those kinds of things? It's critical to their day.
It's everything, and I'm constantly staggered by the amount of people who make a living off of these people who don't attempt to understand what it is these people go through on a daily basis.
Listening to you guys talk about drivers today, one of the things that folks don't really go back far enough to realize is that the driver in the original truck was considered an inconvenience, really. There was no place.
That's changed?
Well, there's a
lot of lip service paid in the other direction.
Exactly. Well, what I'm saying is that there's nothing new that we've talked about at all this morning, this week, last month, or this year that hasn't been a thing in trucking since since it was there when I got here 55 years ago, and it was there 125 years ago when the first trucks hit the road. The same problems are there because we're the same people. But truck drivers, there was no place for them. if it was cold and there was a hood on the truck and it wasn't a blunt nose, he could sleep in the winter on the hood, was for as long as it was warm. And back in the mid '50s, Tech Talk with TMC, our longest running series here on all of our shows, over 1,000 shows, that was born out of what was called the maintenance committee of the regular Common Carrier Conference back in 1956. And they would have these meetings, and they would throw these manufacturers into the barrel and pummel them with questions about why this, why that, why not, why can't you, and on and on and on. And TMC was born, and eventually truck drivers were considered an important commodity along with the potato chips that were in the trailer. I mean, it's humanity's history all over again.
And speaking of humanity's history, we have to move history along and get on to our next guest. Dave, would you care to do the honors of introducing them?
Yes, Nancy O'Litty is back with us. Nancy heads up the NITL, and she's been doing that since 2021, but the NITL has been around since 1907, going back a few, the National Industrial Transportation League. And Nancy will tell you that they cover all of the bases: on the rail, on the road, on the air, on the water, and on the air right now. And Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, guys. What a show. Came in on the tail end of safety there. And I don't know if I mentioned before that my husband drove for 35 years. So I'm quite familiar with it. He was not necessarily over the road. He did do some over the road, but still how people treat truckers just on the road. So great job. I appreciate what that company's doing. Sounded great. And now here we are with the history of everything going in chaos, right?
Pretty much.
That's all I can say.
Wait, though, Nancy, you're getting way ahead of things here. What was your costume for Halloween?
Yeah, what's going on?
You know what? It was freezing here. So I actually didn't dress up this year, and I didn't even put my fire pit out. I made those little ones come up to the door. But I did see some amazing costumes this year. Funny. Oh my God, the kids were so funny. A lot of blow-ups this year instead of handmade costumes, but cute, funny. So yeah.
A lot of K-pop.
So.
A lot of K-pop
Yes.
demon hunters. Oh my God! I was at my brother's house. Chris Orban is with us this morning. Chris, I was at my brother's house, and I swear to God, there were like about 20 boys there, and every single one of them was dressed like one of those K-pop demon hunters. And they basically, I guess they decided that the barbecue beef brisket was a demon because, man, they got rid of it in an awful hurry. I'll tell you that right now. They just consumed it.
That's funny. That's really funny. Yeah, ours are a lot of mixed up blow-up things.
Yeah, I saw that too. A lot of people wearing like what I would call, and they're wearing inflatables. And I'm like, and I looked at one of the parents and I said, you realize by putting your child in that, you now are compelled to walk with them every step of the way, or a heavy wind is going to bounce them down the street. And like, yeah, I know what I've gotten. Go ahead.
And it was very, very windy. I felt for them, actually. But I guess maybe they got tired faster. I don't know.
Maybe that's it. It's a wear-out strategy. If I could just wear my kid out, it's kind of like running them around in the backyard. It's like, I said, Halloween's over. You've made a choice. Let's get back home and get back home to watching like slasher films that you don't get to enjoy with me. Go to bed. And then you take your candy tax and move on with things. We were talking about that this morning too. I mean, it's always important to make sure that you get your candy tax in. As Dave says, 1 for you, 2 for me, 1 for you, 3 for me. That works out really well. What isn't working out well right now, watch this terrible segue, Dave. What's not working out right well is we still haven't resolved this gosh darn government shutdown, have we?
No, we have not. And you did a great job of explaining it, League. I will correct the only mode we don't cover is air.
Sorry.
There was a time, but I am so thankful that we don't, because we have enough with rail, highway.
You think?
And ocean. So, I mean, they're all being hit at the same time at the moment. So I think we're fine not having air.
I want to ask you something though. You just sparked a question for me. This may sound like Dave's silly question of the day, but
Dave's silly question of the day, number one.
It's not meaning to be. Drones. Drones are going to be part and parcel, certainly, of home delivery. They already are, with the workhorse and the horsefly, although I haven't heard about them in a while. But in other words, do you think that you guys might take drones under the umbrella at some point? Not aircraft, but drones.
The FAA runs that racket, dude.
Yeah.
Well, what we move, because we're industrial shippers,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that a drone could follow it, maybe, but I don't think a drone could carry it.
Got it. Okay.
Because we carry, so our members are mostly packaging, paper, grain, chemicals, gas, oil. We do have a few new ones. We have timber, and we do also have Nestle Purina. So we're branching out quite a bit, actually. We do have a few members that are more intermodal or move LTL freight, very
Mm-hmm.
large ones that I'm sure you've heard of.
Mm-hmm.
They may be using drones. I'm sure they're practicing, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have UPS, FedEx, and our favorite, Amazon. So I'm sure that they are trying. I know Amazon is.
Oh, yeah.
But for the most part, my industrial shippers are not using, or I have not talked about using, but it is something we probably will have to get into.
Did you see, by the way, where Amazon is looking, we're going to use drones in particular, like when they go to places like Appalachia, and when you have like these really long, kind of twisted and torturous country roads, it's like, you know what, dude? I'm stopping right here and launching a drone with toilet paper on it and dropping it off at people's...
But I think it's smart.
I do too.
Disaster relief,
especially
too.
when we're talking about safety.
Yeah.
So some of those roads, even when we travel the Rocky Mountains, I was like, oh my God, please get me off the Rocky Mountains. So I think it's smart gas-wise, it's smart safety-wise, because it really takes a lot to pull it up the hill. So yeah, I can see some of my more intermodal members going for it.
By the way, Nancy, welcome to what we call the weeds here on Nemo Nation, where we actually start off in one place and end up completely different. Chris Orban is with us this morning. He's got a question for you as well and a point he wants to make.
So it's actually around drones. It's around drones and safety, which is I'd be very interested in your thoughts.
I'm having a really hard time hearing you guys.
Okay. All right. We're gonna pick this up. By the way, can you hear us now? How about now? How am I doing?
I can hear you, but I couldn't hear whoever just jumped in.
Sorry.
That was Chris Orban from Journey TMS, Nancy. Yeah, he's here with us in the studio.
Apologies, Nancy. I was just asking a question around perhaps your industrial clients or people you're working with there using drones in a safety or other than delivery mode, right? So, one of the things that we did at one of my prior employers was FedEx was using drones to inspect their airplanes, which I thought was a very interesting application for semi-autonomous technology and things like that. So I'd love to know if you're hearing anything about that.
That's where I think they could be really, really smart. And, we have a lot of trouble finding our freight on ocean carriers and where they shifted it to like a little island versus trans vessels. I can see that being a good feature as well when we're trying to really locate what happened to the freight. And the same thing with rail. Rail is not like a FedEx delivery where you can track it by the minute. We're working on it. There's a lot of people working on it, but I can see drones just following that as well.
That's great insight.
I think they're going to find lots of ways. Maybe it'll stop some of the crime.
That's a good point, too, because that's a security camera that moves, by the way. And by the way, given what we know about the technology where I can point a camera at myself on a tripod and it can track me, that's got all kinds of security implications as well. That's a good point, Nancy.
Yeah, I think we need to – it should be something we're investing in because crime just seems to be getting worse by the minute.
Okay.
We just had a NITL. Go ahead. Did we sideways too far there?
No. You did fine. I'm the. By the way, it was Dancing Dave that took us into the weeds because he had a drone on his mind and it actually led us into a rail yard for security measures. No, we were actually at the government shutdown, by the way, and maybe we could use some drones to spy on members of Congress. By the way, we had our own government shutdown. Maybe we could actually use drones to spy on members of Congress and see what they're really up to right now while the government is shut down. But how are you guys holding up under this nonsense?
Actually, it's quite annoying, to be honest, for everyone. And and the numbers are staggering. The cost to the U.S. citizens that the shutdown keeps going. We shut down October 1, and every 3 weeks it's costing us $3 to $6 billion. So by the end of this, we should be in really, really great shape. And what's really frightening to me, because I have many friends who work in the government, mostly because of where I live. I'm right in Maryland. They are not guaranteeing them back pay. I really feel for these families, and some of them have both parents as government employees. It's just some people are starting to lose it, if you know what I'm saying. Like, and NITL does not take a position, whether politically, Republican or Democrat. And I think most of Americans would agree that we don't really care anymore about that. What we care about is taking care of our people. So, which we cannot do if they're not there in Washington, D.C. So we just did a fly-in at the beginning of October, like it was the 6th to the 9th for our policy forum. And although the government was shut down, we were able to do a tour of the Capitol because there was an ex-congressman who took us through. And some of our members did meet with members, obviously mostly the Democratic side, but it was eerie to Washington. It was so quiet. I'm like, I just want you all to know it is not like this. It's usually insane. So I really hope from what I've read this weekend, I don't see anytime soon any negotiations happening, which is just a shame.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. It's a game of chicken that is being played with the American consumer, the American laborer, and the American people writ large in the middle of it.
And the thing that's more frustrating, I think, and I actually worked in Capitol Hill in the day, you don't have control of it as an employee. So while your heart wants to do your job, and some people are going in, just for the record, like for surface transportation, the commissioners are there, but they don't have staff. For STB, the chair is there, but no one else is there. So any of the things that are pending, nothing's happening really because one man can't do it by himself. And this leads it. Hey, now this is a good lead in, you guys, which takes us back to the UP NS merger. If they are saying that by December 1, they will have their over 4,000 page agreement to STB. Well, if there's no one there to read it, and I think and we are working closely with many shipping organizations to make sure that all of us ask for more time. 4,000 pages is a lot to digest and to make comment on. So we're really praying that, and working with much larger associations to make sure that Congress understands that we cannot review and edit and comment on something that large in the time frame that UP would like. So that's kind of where we are on the merger. Our members have talked to, staff talked to UP, but UP is reaching out to most of our members individually. And we had BNSF on our rail call last week, who I'm sure you know is totally against the merger. And I think when we think about the merger, NITL is on record for no more mergers. We've been there for a long time because we're down to very little as it is. And the big question for everyone here is, why is this necessary? Why is this merger necessary at this time? And really, will it enhance competition? We have a lot of members who are not commodity approved, such as paper, steel, and we've been fighting for years to drop the old rule of commodities that were not exempt, and still working on that issue. So there is never a dull moment, I'll say. Even though they're gone, we're still pushing.
Good
and
God.
hoping and praying that they'll come back.
By the way, we've been making the joke that some people said, I mean, there were people I grew up with in the 90s. Nancy O'Lady joins us this morning, by the way, of NITL. But what's interesting about it is I knew people that grew up said, man, I grew up in boring times. I can't believe it. I wish I'd grown up in the late 60s or, during World War II. And I just look at them, I'm like going, how you feeling now? How's it going now for
really.
you? How's it? You like this? This is a blast and a half, isn't it? May you live in interesting times is not always interesting. Is not always a good thing as well too. I mean, you're talking to a free trade and trust busting guy over here. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that's got me very, very deeply concerned. I do want to, in the time that we have left here as well, to kind of address the issue of tariffs. It's been on a lot of people's minds. There are a lot of people on both sides of this issue who have, pretty clear and strong voices, but want to kind of talk to you about the cost of it on U.S. businesses, because the word of the day, whether it's been Chris or Dave, myself, or any of our guests, has been, and a word I know you love, uncertainty, has been the biggest issue facing so many organizations. Is that kind of the key? Is that the certainness of it is the uncertainty?
100%. And I will tell you that it is costing my members and U.S. shippers are really the ones paying these tariffs. We have not gotten to the point where tariffs are coming from other countries. And I think people need to understand that. Costco printed the other day that they've already paid $40 billion in tariffs. So I'm like, when do we understand that this is costing U.S. people, not the other way around? And the uncertainty, and again, now we just changed rules again with China, which is a great thing. The reciprocal, great. But when you're trying to do contracts, when you're on ocean ship, you're not doing that in a minute, and it's not moving in a minute. It can be 7 weeks. It can be 12 weeks. The uncertainty just makes that even more difficult. And the ports are also starting to add some more port fees, just what we need when we're already paying out the wazoo.
And contracts are binding, by the way. We don't understand that either, is the fact that, the New Deal might be a great deal for everybody, but the last 3 deals that were signed, and that's the end of that.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing, too. Nobody gets that. And I always say, because you brought up a good point about the 7 weeks and all, let's go down to the micro, as we've been talking about this morning. Have anybody, and many of our listeners can, I know you have, anybody ever seen a freighter turn around? The literal act of what turning around a freighter, only an aircraft carrier is more painful to watch in regards to, is it ever going to make this turn? It takes a long time to turn this stuff around, doesn't it?
Oh my God, yes. And because we're working in a time as well where Congress is not really being used to do their job. A lot of the executive orders were done, very quickly, and for example, for Customs and Border Patrol to write out the guidelines is painful because they don't understand what they mean. And we've been trying really hard to communicate with the different agencies on these issues. And one is transvessel. So when does the clock start for a transvessel move? And it is very unclear. So some shippers are charging our shippers more, but because they're charging it at a different start time. And again, like I told you, as far as we're concerned, it starts from the day that it goes on the ship. And it has always been that way, but that is not the new interpretation. So when you're talking about a shutdown, we can't talk to anyone about anything. And freight is still moving. Well, let me say it's trying to move. One of my members is a coffee distributor, but it's part of the coffee. And as you know, most of that's out of Brazil. And we've had a lot of on and offs with Brazil, which has caused extreme inflation on coffee. I don't know if you saw that Starbucks was shutting down, I forget how many of their stores. There's a lot of consequences. And the same for the trucking industry. And my heart goes out to them because, as you know, I worked for Truckload Carriers for 8 years, and I care very much about truck drivers. So the fact that we're just doing things at whims is not working for the U.S.
By the way, Nancy,
and we are not against the we're not against the president, and we understand that tariffs could bring money, but basically they really are a tax. Then we had the USTR 301 rule, which was another hit in the bucket. And I think you've heard too. So there are just some things that we cannot make in the U.S. We do not have the means or the supplies, honestly. And we got to remember, Brazil really is the only place that can grow coffee beans. It's just their thing. You know, every country has a thing. So I think we're going to have a bit of a difficult recovery if we ever get there.
And by the way, Brazil can also make soybeans, and that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day, which, by the way, is the maximum amount of leverage that China is able to bring to be able to say, you know what, we'll get our soybeans elsewhere. And that kind of brought everybody back to the table. We got to let you go. I hate to do this. We could keep you here all morning. Nancy O'Liddy has joined us. We started off with Halloween, and then we got to some really spooky stuff after that. It's good to have you, though. It's really great to have you. Please promise that you'll come back soon.
Sure will, guys, and thank you so much. Have a good week.